Amanda Land. We up. I love hearing that theme song. Today's Level Up guest is Dr. David Johns. I'm surprised you didn't put a title under here.
Listen, Fred, I was so focused on being engaged in the discussion, watching people trash your ex-boyfriend, fuck him and his birthday, learning new words that I wouldn't even focus on.
You know he owed me $4,000.
I believe it. And drop a pin. Let's roll up on him. Tap him on the shoulder. Run us on.
I would drop a pin, David, if I knew where he was. I have not. I don't know. There hasn't even been a sighting. There hasn't even been a sighting. I don't even know if the man's still alive, if he in the United States. There has not even been a sighting since July 31st, 2023.
Jesus be offense. He probably in New Orleans or Mardi Gras, spending his money.
Spending somebody money. My money. Spending some other woman money that thought, this is a good man. Yes. $4,000, y'all. I want my money. I want my money on time.
That's a lot of money.
$4,000. Yes. And it was to fix his car. And the day that we broke up, I had brought it up and was like, so what's good with the bread? What's good with the bread? And he was like, it's just taking a little longer than usual to pay you back. You didn't put nothing on it though. Can I get a hundo?
Can I get 20?
Can we notch it down? Yo, what you're experiencing is two people that know each other. Welcome to the show, Dr. David Johns. Before I let you step up while I go and get my water, let me give a proper introduction. Actually, let's get real proper. Hold on.
It's the production for me.
Dr. David Johns began his career as an elementary school educator in New York City. He was appointed the first executive director of the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for African Americans by President Obama and served from 2013 to 2017. He is now Dr. David J. Johns, the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of the National Black Justice Collective, NBJC, a civil rights organization dedicated to the empowerment of Black, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, plus, and same-gender loving people, including people living with HIV/AIDS. He was appointed the first, and perhaps most importantly, he went to school with me. We are both graduates of the Institute for Research in African American Studies at Columbia University. I use the robot because they are robots now. But we went to Iris, so we are sequestered, okay? So shout out to David Johns. Welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And, I wanted to talk about this video that I saw. So I'm going to play the video. And if I'm not back by then, speak to the people. Y'all welcome Dr. Johns. Remember, your questions should all be addressed to Dr. Johns. You know how we play in this classroom. We respect our guests and we give them the
Keep
utmost.
it cute. I'm from Inglewood and I fight. Don't let these degrees fool you.
I have a sweatshirt that says that.
I'm just saying, don't let these degrees fool you.
They really do be thinking that. They really do be thinking that. And I'm just like, why do you think that? Why do you think that because somebody has degrees that they don't have hands?
Both hands. It's both hands. Multiple intelligences. Yep.
I've never understood it. I don't get it. And you know what? I also realized that I did not even drop this video in. So, Dr. Johns, tell us what brought you to education as a field?
Oh, that's a good question. So I was reluctant. I was reluctant in accepting the calling on my life to be an educator. As you said, I went to Columbia, graduated near the top of my class. And I remember my boys literally invited me to a restaurant on Broadway and staging an intervention, because I decided to teach elementary school. And the shorter version of how this happened is that you might remember, Amanda, my senior year, so you would have been gone by now, so maybe you don't remember. But there was a collusion of whiteness and privilege that resulted in an anti-affirmative action bake sale, started at UC Berkeley, migrated its way all the way over to Columbia. So Lerner Hall, I was in class across from Tongo when he got a call because they were in Lerner Hall. The conservative club set up a bake sale, mock bake sale, and essentially were trying to charge us 50 cents for a cookie, white men $3 for a cookie, and make the case that we didn't earn our spaces at this institution because of affirmative action, not appreciating that at a private institution, affirmative action didn't exist, but Legacy did. That was one. The second thing was it Orgo Night or was it? No, yeah, Orgo Night. So our marching band who aims to be offensive. This is a group of folks who, unlike the Marching 100 at FAMU or Jackson State, like get it in because they're good at what they do. Our band aims to be offensive. So I remember they were suspended for saying at a game with Fordham University, a Jesuit school, y'all are going down like Catholic boys on priests.
Oh, wow.
Right. This is their humor. They hide behind humor and satire. And so every semester before their organic chemistry final, they perform a series of skits. Their goal is to offend as many people as possible. And this year in particular, 3 of the advertisements included one attacking a student named Jamie Gleicher, who was at Barnard. It said Barnard girls are by and large bisexual and large, and it had this girl's picture on a flyer. There was another one that had a picture.
What?
Right. And she was on the show at the time, MTV's Rich Girls, with Dylan, Ralph Lauren's daughter. So some of it was she had an elevated profile, but also fuck them for that. Yeah. The second was Edward Said.
We can't curse on here or they won't give me my money.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You good.
You got to keep telling me though, because it'd be in my spirit. So the
you know, I have to tell myself.
Tell me. So Edward Said is a brilliant professor whose work has been resurfaced as more of us are paying attention to what's going on in Palestine and Gaza. Thank you for your work and leadership, standing 10 toes down on that. But it had a picture from his obituary to say Yahweh 1 Said 0, and it had an X through it. Disrespectful. Wow. And then the last thing was February 21st, 2004, the Conservative Club published a cartoon in the newspaper, the Columbia Spectator, and it was about Black History Month. It starred Kunta Cornelius and Steppen. It reduced our contributions to this country through sports and entertainment. The last slide said, Black people do lots of other wacky things, but you don't have to worry about that until next Black History Month. Why will I always remember the date? One, it's my birthday. I was born on the day that Malcolm X was assassinated. And I got the newspaper less than 15 blocks away from where that had happened. And this shifted everything that I had planned. So prior to all of these things happening, I had applied to law school. I was about to go to law school and use that as a way to challenge white mediocrity and their unearned privilege. And then I had to give all of that up. And I founded an organization with a number of my friends called Columbia University Concerned Students of Color. And we as students ended up negotiating with Lee Bollinger, who had just come to the university after having been named in Greta Gratton Bollinger for the stuff at Michigan, and was defending our white colleagues based on the policies of the university that privilege their whiteness. And what I would say to Lee Bollinger is like, let's not play the game. If I use the words that are equal in what they're saying to me, I'm going to violate the policy. And so we worked to get things shifted. And ultimately, while all of this was going on, a lot of my organizing was happening between Iris, shout out to Sharon and Dr. Griffin for giving me keys and letting me make copies and hold meetings. But the other organizing was happening under the auspices of Jewel L. Davis, who was a university chaplain. She was located in the school building where I ended up teaching kindergarten. And so, Amanda, I'd always, when I think about it in hindsight, I've always worked with children. I understand the teaching of Bell Hooks, who reminds us that too often, and this is why some of us are here, because people F-A and now they're F-O. But what Bell Hooks says is that we forget, we don't teach that democracies have to be born anew with each generation, and education is its midwife. And so I found myself teaching kindergarten to 3rd grade, doing a lot of organizing in that space as well, and then took a pay cut because what I saw is that I could spend all of my time, energy, and resources trying to make my classroom better, trying to make the school better, but there was an entire system that impacted everything that was going on. And so I swam upstream. I took a pay cut from being a teacher after I finished my master's degree and was a CBCF fellow in DC.
That's a whole other conversation. CBC and all of that. But education as we know it, in that effort, there's so much effort to undermine
absolutely
And we're seeing it in real time when Linda McMahon is named the head of the Department of Education. We'll talk about that on another episode because I do have videos. But I wanted to play this video specifically as it relates to a recent development within this fascist existence that we are quickly descending into, and talk to Dr. Johns about it after. For those of you all who have students in school right now, pay attention.
At every level, K through college.
What is happening? Good morning. I am struggling to find the words for this video. And I normally just talk off the cuff. I've never created a script. I've never really been a content creator. I've been a sharer of my jumbled up thoughts, and I cannot get the words for this video because I am so angry. Morning, Friday, February 28th is the morning that all public schools in the United States of America and all public college and universities can no longer have any diversity, equity, and inclusion in their school if they do not want to risk losing funding. And last night, our government, our United States government, created a website that is paid with tax-funded money so that any community member can turn in a teacher or a school that is doing any sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion in their school or in their classroom. Department of Education launched the END DEI portal, the END Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion portal. And in this portal, any community members, in fact, they are calling on patriots to find teachers that are using diversity, equity, and inclusion inside their classrooms, and they want to know the name, address, zip code, and school of any person that is doing diversity, equity, and inclusion so they can investigate that person. Are you hearing what I am saying? To report and turn teachers in. It's backed by Moms of Liberty. And if your reality has not come across Moms for Liberty yet, now is the time. Actually, a couple years ago was the time to figure out who the heck Moms of Liberty is and what this group stands for, because it is horrid. It is white supremacy. And they're going to sell it with a nice little bow package of, no, we're protecting our students. Go look at the list of books that they have banned. They want no mention of any minority, any special education student, anything. They don't even want Harry Potter. Sad for American teachers right now. What are they going to do with this information? Ensuring that there are books that have Black and brown students in them. Diversity, let's turn the teacher in. Equity, your kid can't see, so let me give them a seat at the front of the classroom. Equity, turn the teacher in. Inclusion, let's make sure every single kid feels welcome. Guess what? We have a Burmese student in our classroom. Let's spend 30 minutes talking about a celebration that this child knows in their culture to make them feel included in the classroom. Inclusion, turn the teacher in. The teacher has a poster of different children from different backgrounds sitting around a rug, reading together, saying, have a nice day with your friends. Diversity, turn them in. Child needs shortened assignments. Your child needs breaks during the school day. Equity, turn the teacher in. Learning how to say good morning in another language so that you can greet a student that comes in the door saying good morning in another language. Inclusion, turn the teacher in. What are we doing? This should alarm the fuck out of you.
Now, these are white tears that I will allow. Okay. These are white tears I will allow. That's just Leanie Borg 3 on TikTok. As an educator, what is the first emotion that strikes for you?
Let me not answer it that way. As a person who led the White House initiative, as you mentioned, on educational access for African Americans established by still my president, Barack Hussein Obama, his fabulous wife, Michelle Obama Robinson Obama, Sasha Malia, Grandma Robinson, rest in peace. What I know is that the first week in office, Amanda, he killed every initiative that has existed since Reagan. And so in this moment, the professional in me wants to just name how mad and enraged I am at that fact and the reality that I hired staff who worked through Trump's first term who have been put out of a job as a result of this. And I'm saying that because I know that there are so many people who haven't been to DC, who don't have meaningful relationships with folks, who are career public servants. You might live in Inglewood, California, like where I'm from, and didn't watch The West Wing. So you have no real sense of what's happening in DC in terms of them draining the swamp. But there are real people who have been real patriots who have been impacted by this administration. Specific to the video related to these executive orders, Trump signed into office ending racial indoctrination in K-12 schooling, an executive order on January 29, 2025. I want to be clear that there are at least 4 lawsuits that are active right now and challenging this. And so the first thing that I want people to know is that we should not capitulate. We should do nothing until we're forced to. We should do nothing until we're forced to. I'll send you all of the lawsuits just in case folks in the class are interested in them. So what this is doing, then I'll give a bit of context. Trump's executive orders target 3 specific aspects of what this administration is calling racial indoctrination. One is teaching about discriminatory equity ideology or gender ideology. The second is supporting trans students' social transition. While they talk about trans students, generally, most of what they're focused on is trans women without regard for trans men. And then the third is undermining what they call patriotic education. What the TikToker is referencing is that this executive order directs the Secretary of Education and the U.S. Attorney General to provide a strategy for eliminating these programs and coordinating to enforce the policy, which is not a law. So that coordination piece is really important because what she talked about is that, so there's a website, you can submit people's information, but unless there is collusion such that there's then an investigation and then there's a mechanism for somebody to be held accountable, it doesn't mean anything. And I want everybody to remember that this is not new. Ronald Dion DeSantis, the federal history teacher turned governor of Florida, pioneered a lot of this when he was auditioning to run for president. 2 bills that people might remember. One is Don't Say Gay, HB 1577, I believe it was. It was titled Parental Rights in Education. I'll go back to Moms for Liberty in a second, but the second bill was Stop Woke, right? And so these bills were designed to terrorize teachers into not doing anything so that they wouldn't trip over these landmines that were intentionally created to be nebulous. And what, again, we should know is that there are judges, including Trump-appointed judges, who have said that what DeSantis attempted to do was unconstitutional. So 3 things. One is we talked a lot about having credentials, degrees, and hands. I saw somebody who was like, I don't have hands or credentials, but I know how to take a punch. That's important too. We might need to push you to the front of the line, but we should all be clear that they don't care about parents or kids at all. Moms for Liberty is cosplaying as moms, as people who are caring and concerned. Most of them don't have kids, and if they do, those kids are not in public school.
Say it.
The second that I mentioned is that so much of what fascists, neo-fascists, I don't use the term white supremacy anymore because it's actually a reflection of their mediocrity and attempts to hold on to privilege. But so much of what they bank on.
What can we call it then?
White mediocrity.
I use that because that's what people know it, because that's what people understand. But
I got 2: white mediocrity or white delusion.
Oh, I'm using white delusion.
White delusion, right? And so much of what they bank on in terms of operationalizing white delusion is that we trip over ourselves to do the work for them. Beloved, I want you to find a sermon from Dr. King titled, But If Not. He preached this at Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Senator Warnock is now the presiding minister, and 63, if memory serves me well. It's the story of Meshach, Shadrach, and a bad Negro. And what it talks about is the importance of having the kind of faith that says, I'm not going to bow at your statue because I'm not about that life. The way that I'm built, the Constitution that I have says that this is some BS, and that's not something that I'm supposed to do.
I cannot accept the unacceptable.
But the point here is that we should not capitulate. Let's not do it. And then the third thing is something that I referenced before, but it's that there are very few enforcement mechanisms, and much of what Trump's executive orders are doing is bumping up against existing law. Executive orders are not laws. They're not laws. So much of what Trump is desiring to do requires congressional legislation.
Right.
They need to send him a bill that he signs into law. And so in this moment, in between, in this moment of it's not stasis, but again, in between, it's important for us to be measured, to understand that we've been here before. 50 years ago, we Brown versus 51 now, Brown versus Board of Education 1 was tried. Schools are more segregated now than they were then. So some of this is about perspective. Sorry, go for it.
That's how much of an educator you are. Wait, but that's how much of an educator you are. I'm in your class. I'll wait.
Sorry.
No, don't ever apologize. Because that's why I was like that. He's going. I'm just letting him know that I have a question. No, please.
No, what's up?
When you said that, dang, I lost it because I was trying to listen as I was trying to hold on to the thought. You were saying that the laws are the executive orders against.
They're not laws.
Right. And then you said something right after that. Dang, he was moving. I forgot.
Don't capitulate.
There was something you just said, and I was like, oh, I need to ask him about that. What was he saying, y'all? Y'all be paying attention. What was he saying? You were saying about Dr. King, but then you were saying Brown versus Board of Education.
We're more segregated now than they were 51 years ago.
I can't remember. Keep going. Do your thing.
Well, I know, Stephanie, I was trying to keep up with the chat as well. Y'all are on fire, so I missed a lot of spots. But
no, but I'll ask their questions after.
Okay.
But when we talk about the ways in which these orders are getting put in place,
yep.
And how they can be challenged,
yep.
What are realistic ways that they can be challenged to force the hand of these judges, et cetera, et cetera? Oh, wait, it's coming to me. It was, I got it. So him making these executive orders, which bump up against laws, is that an actual, do you agree or disagree that is somewhat of a strategy, knowing that he has the Supreme Court in place to effectively change them into law? And so he's doing the executive orders to push them all the way up so that there is some sort of congressional shift that is taken.
Yes and no. I do believe that it is a part of his strategy to throw things to the court, knowing that he has bought the Supreme Court. But the challenge is that no, it won't happen that way. The thing that he is experiencing that I didn't think he anticipated is that there are judges that he appointed who were saying, nigga, this is too much, that you've gone too far. That this is against.
It's unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional, but it's also naming the hypocrisy. Linda McMahon yesterday issued a letter after having been sworn in as Secretary of Education, and she talks about in this era of accountability, wanting to give education back to the states. If that's the case, then why are you passing on these executive orders, trying to make laws, trying to
that
go
are ruling the states,
to make laws, right? And so the fact that it's being called out by judges is something that I don't think that he anticipated. But yes. He knows that the courts is a strategy that will likely favor him.
Now, someone asked, and this is a question, normally I would wait to the end, but when you say executive orders are not law, can you explain that for folks?
Yeah, so an executive order is a way for the president to tell his staff how to do their job, right? And so the president sits in the Oval Office, and there are a bunch of agencies, the Department of Education, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Labor, there's a Consumer Finance Bureau. Each of these agencies operate based on the boundaries of Congress, right? So think about, we talk about teaching, think about a coloring book. Blank page, Congress takes that black line and outlines the image. They then send it to the president, and in theory, the president's supposed to color inside the lines or outside the lines. And then he'll send an executive order to explain why he colored in this way, what he's hoping people will read into how he colored something. What this guy's trying to do is erase lines, draw new lines, tear up the page and add in new pages. And you cannot do that with regard to laws. 3 branches of government, we still have them, although they are weak as all get out and there's no check for these balances. But laws are the responsibility of Congress. So an executive order is a wish list. It is his articulation of what he would like to see happen. And in some instances where it's not changing law. So for example, when I worked for President Obama, we issued an executive order to help clarify what previous administrations, e.g. Bush, had done wrong. So this executive order says, here's the law, here's the policy, here's how people got it wrong, here's what you should be doing. An executive order under Obama that really benefited our community was around the Office of Civil Rights and investigating harms against children because they have a disability, because they are a woman, Title IX, because they're LGBTQIA+. You mentioned in my bio, and I think I saw a question about what is same gender loving. I don't use gay because gay is a signifier for white gay men. When I say gay, you don't think about somebody who shows up like this with all this fabulousness. And so same gender loving is a term created by a Black man. So, I'm clear about my
What is it?
My queerness, which is redundant because most of us in this space are queer.
What's the term?
Same gender loving.
Oh, same gender loving. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's not the point. The point is that it is an executive order. It is not a law, and we should respect it as such.
That's really great framing for folks because, of course, they leave that out when this language is given to folks on mainstream media, et cetera. And there's also the fear mongering that comes along with this, right? There is this definite suggestion that because it has been said, it is law, which is what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to say, when you have J.D. Vance and these folks like, we shouldn't have to listen to the law. Like if he says it, then that's what it is. No, that's not what it is. That's really literally why the country is set up the way it is.
That's
and
right.
though there are very, 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 very innumerable flaws
That's right.
in this system and the way that it has now been disrupted and corrupted, that was the intention, right?
Right.
That was the intention. So let's go to some of y'all's questions. Sarah Gabrielle F84 says, Dr. John, where do you see education in the U.S. in 10
I love that
years?
because that's the question that I wrote down. When I think about the fact that Black people in this country have never trusted public systems to do the job of ensuring that we know who we are and whose we are, if we teach our babies, then education will be fine. But if we abdicate responsibility, if we capitulate to folks bathing in white delusion and trust that public schools are going to do the work, then we should expect to be in a fiery pit close to hell.
And for what it's straight face, for what it's worth, that has not been something new, y'all. Like after post antebellum and during the Reconstruction period, there was an opportunity at that time for Black children to go to schools before segregation had actually really been implemented. And they were like, yeah, nah, we don't feel safe with that. We don't know what y'all gonna do, because the ending of the Civil War did not mean the ending of racism.
Quite the opposite.
They was even more mad.
That's right.
We didn't like you before, and now we got to live next to you. You know what? Let's
Now
put
we
some
gotta share
things.
resources with you.
Yes, let's put some things in place to cut this down, right? So I know people say oftentimes, the ending of segregation was harmful to us, and we shouldn't have desegregated. And I think that that's an representation of the responsibility that white people needed to have beyond simply desegregating. It wasn't simply that we needed to desegregate. It was that we literally needed to demystify white mediocrity. We actually needed to demystify white delusion. And that's what never happened. Like there was no cultural actual movement amongst America, the United States, to support the fact that desegregation was not acceptable. It was like, we're going to give you this law shift, but we're not going to shift our minds. That's
Well,
it.
here's the thing that I launched my podcast, Teach the Babies, connected to this anniversary, and 2 things that I've learned while doing this. Desegregation was the compromise. And it became the preferred position.
It's a here nigga damn law.
That's exactly right. It became the preferred position of the NAACP, but the real goal was resource redistribution.
Yes.
This is the same thing Dr. King was singing the song of the year he was assassinated, right? Which is why folks are talking about pay me in equity, right? This is about us having access to
We're coming to
the
get our
capital
check.
that we generated. We generate
Yes.
this capital. We built, as Angela said, we built this country for free. And so much of this is about redistributing resources. Somebody asked a question in the chat, would charter schools be affected? I appreciate the question for two reasons. One, charter schools are public schools. Charter schools are public schools, and people get that messed up. Charter schools are public schools that get autonomies or flexibilities in exchange for, in theory, in exchange for higher outcomes at a more efficient rate. You were supposed to be doing better with less. But what we have now are charter authorizing boards that don't hold people accountable for doing better with less, without creaming or gaming the system. And so people just take advantage of the flexibility. And the short answer is yes, public charter schools will be affected by all of this. And Amanda, there's another executive order, and it's now resulting in another set of lawsuits about them attempting to have a religious charter school. So they are now attempting to do different strategies to privatize education and again, siphon off what should be public funds to go to privately led organizations benefiting people like Betsy DeVos, who was the first, Linda McMahon.
Voucher systems.
That's exactly right.
Carmen Vela says, Dr. Johns, which of the way, okay, we've seen a Dr. John. Now we got Dr. Johns with the apostrophe. Like,
you got the apostrophe, put it on the end if it's plural possessive.
Which of the Democrats in the Congress are in the trenches fighting this? Because leadership doesn't seem to be doing it.
Ooh, I mean, that's it. The reality is that my fraternity brother, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, said we don't have any leverage, which left a lot of people feeling powerless. And in the absence of having a robust...
He's a Kappa?
He is. In the absence of having a...
I can't see him shimmying. I'm sorry. I don't see him. I'm like, you an alpha. I don't see
in
you
the absence of having a robust legislative strategy, those who are in the arena show up looking like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman AOC Cortez. It's folks who are leveraging the bully pulpit to talk their stuff. Maxine Waters, who was just on the floor throwing around papers, reminded people that she's not the one to be trifled with. I also want to point people toward the Democratic Party and some of the shifts that they have made in the wake of this autopsy of the most recent election. Again, something else
now, you know, we don't F with the Democratic Party here at the Amanda Land.
Yes, and let me make this point. Yes, and let me make this point, and
Okay.
I'm happy to continue to debate it, which is that there is, for the first time, a Black saved-and-loving man, Malcolm Kenyatta, who ran for Senate in Pennsylvania, also ran for Auditor General, who is now in leadership within the party. And I'm confident that he's going to shake some things up. I'm also really excited about the Working Family Party, us doing more to talk about how to make.
I literally was on the line today
real.
getting them in here.
Yeah,
so I'm going to work.
They're doing amazing work. We're in coalition with them, but in the absence of us having a viable third party structure, it's also important for us to shake up those that exist, the apparatus that exist.
All right, next question. Actually, not a question, Dr. Johns. Thank you for breaking things down. Okay. Next question. Kishan says, question for Dr. Johns. In your opinion, which has more impact in contesting executive orders, legal challenges or advocacy and public pressure?
It depends on what the executive order is.
Fair.
I'd probably say C, all of the above. And in order of effectiveness, the most effective backstop to these executive orders in this moment are the staff, are public servants who are either career public servants or politically appointed. So folks know there are two types of people who work in government. You are either a career servant, which means that you're not there based on a political party. You tend to stay in the job. That's why people talk about a good government job, regardless of the
You're
change.
apolitical.
You're apolitical.
You're serving the Constitution.
With regard to doing your job. That's exactly right. You are a patriot. You are doing your job. And then there are folks like me who are political appointees. And in this moment, having career staff who continue to do their job in spite of what the current director of the Office of Management and Budget says, which is that they want to terrorize people so that they leave or they're unable to do their job. Those people are the front line of defense. And so if you know somebody who's a public servant, love on them, send them a care package, let them know that you appreciate them. I mean that sincerely. And then both advocacy, pressure, especially if you can apply it, if you know somebody who's connected, if you are a member of one of these white delusion organizations, leverage your privilege in that regard. But that pressure is important. But when there is an immediate harm that's been caused by an executive order, so we haven't talked about it, but one of the executive order challenges Title IX. Title IX has been used historically to protect women from discrimination or violence. This Title IX refers to it's literally the ninth chapter of the legislation as is being bastardized to advance this attack against trans folk. Because that impacts real students in real ways right now, legal injunctions that say, no, you cannot do this are important. I'll give you another one. A couple of weeks ago, some people saw there was a freezing of federal funds that impacted organizations like mine in real time. We could not draw down funds to do the work of talking about HIV so that Black folks know it's not just a gay disease, that Black straight women are still dying as a result of HIV when that should not be the case because of medical, scientific, and social advancements. That required legal injunctions such that that person had to move and run us our money that we were entitled to.
Where do you find the lawyers to do those legal injunctions?
So there are organizations like looking at a note from a dear colleague. The National Center for Lesbian Rights is an advocacy organization based in Oakland. They are pursuing a lot of the defense with regard to expansion, battling against all of these trans attacks. The Leadership Conference for Civil and Human Rights is offering pro bono assistance to individuals and organizations who've been impacted by these executive orders. Damon Hewitt runs the Lawyers Committee. There are a number of, and I will type them up and send them to you so that you can share them with the class. But there are a number of advocacy organizations whose job it is to do this work. For folks who are have more questions about the range of executive orders outside of education, look at the Center for American Progress. They are a think tank. They're the counterpart to the Heritage Foundation that is the progenitor of Project 2025. So all of this to say that there are organizations who have been doing this work, who are equipped to do this work, who we should leverage when we need them.
Are y'all getting all of this? All right, last question. Dr. Johns, how do we protect children in schools that depend on services for disabilities?
Yeah.
That was a ancestral size, what that was.
Yeah. As I feel myself, like, you know, when you get so mad you want to cry.
I'm a Cancer.
That's right. Let me say three things. One, heretofore, this administration has not outright attacked the disability community. And so there are existing protections that allow families whose children have a disability or an IEP. You get an IEP by filing a 504.
IEP, can you just break that down for
individualized education plan. So once a child, so I'm actually holding you being so public in inviting us into your neurodivergence. And also just want to name that most students have a disability based on how whiteness shows up in public schools. And most Black people are either born with a disability, and if we live long enough, we'll grow into one. And so I just want to take some time with this because often we still talk about disabilities as if they're only visible or observable disabilities. And so much of this for our babies is about celebrating that often the way that their spirit works and their intellect shows up is incompatible with white delusion by design. It's so important for all of us to hold our babies and make sure they get what they need. That's why I go back to the panther of it all, right? Like the Black Panthers, to be specific, in the tradition of making sure that our babies know who they are and whose they are, and that they have all of the resources and supports they need, including knowing that there are other people who have been similarly challenged, who have found ways to thrive as well. The reality is that I'm not holding my breath. I do think that at a certain point, this is the, and then they came of it all. At a certain point, if they are successful at legislating genocide for trans folks, if they are successful at enshrining the new dog whistle of DEI as a code for anti-Black, once they are done with all of that work, I imagine that they'll turn to the disability community.
Yeah.
And we should be prepared for that. Prepared for that in this moment looks like us knowing it, identifying the organizations that are doing work to provide gap-filling resources and to fill needs in this moment, and to learn how each of us can do more. I'm appreciating the chat, and what I know is that people say silly things like teaching isn't rocket science. They're right, it's a lot harder. My hope is that those of us who are not classroom educators understand that we each have an ability to teach, to mentor, to support the development of our babies, regardless of the beautiful diversity with which they show up. This is a really long way of saying that in this moment, there have been no challenges to the disability community. It's important for us to lock arms and aims with folks who have disabilities, and those of us who were born into a disability. And it's so important for us to be with each other. Susan Taylor would say to lock arms and aims, because if it's not the disability community, it's going to be another community.
That's a great way to, bring this to a close, because I feel like there's a really human reaction right now to create iron walls of protection around each other, right? Around ourselves, around our communities. And but it's being done on the basis of like fear mongering and terrorizing by folks that actually want that to happen, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
there is a certain level of consciousness that we have to have in saying, oh, that's what they want us to do. And so we have to figure out, the fissures within, because of course, yeah, some people are shady, don't get me wrong, right? and within your community and without and outside.
That's
but
right.
like you said, in the locking arms, some of these questions here are really just around like, how do we? And one of the things that you mentioned many times is that at the end of the day, what it's going to require is multiple prongs of approach.
That's right.
It's multiple prongs of approach that you may not be an expert in. I can sit here with you and listen to you speak and acknowledge like Dr. Johns has a greater retention of like specific legal laws and terms that I don't have. And so we come together and we are able to pool our strengths in order to bring this conversation to you all. And when you talk about teach the babies, let me tell you something. Teach the adults.
Those are the big babies. Amanda,
Because the adults.
that's the big baby.
We all big babies, y'all.
Yeah.
We are all big babies. I was saying earlier how like my feelings be getting hurt. And like when my feelings be getting hurt, it is 12-year-old Amanda. Like,
Yep.
So
But let me say one thing that I didn't say, which is
Okay.
my prayers that everybody has a good therapist. And by good therapy, I mean that you're doing work outside of the session. If you were only doing work in the session, then throw them away, start all over. And I say this because so much of this is about attempting to break us.
Yes.
Fascism requires us to be broken, to give up, to say it's not worth it. They got it. I'm just going to stay here and die or wait for them to come and get me. And that's not our posture. NBJC, the organization I lead, has been working to ensure that over the last 3 years, we provided free culturally competent mental health services to 300 of our babies and our elders. And so my hope, if you are Black, queer, trans, gender expansive, and you don't have a therapist, hit me up at nbjc.org. And even if you're not, I'd love to be a resource to help you connect, but we all need a good therapy. You can take it to the altar. You can also take it to your therapist.
If you can take it to the altar, you can also take it to your therapist. Can you give me that website one more time just so I can put it here for the visual?
NBJC, yep, and I'll write it to nbjc.org.
nbjc.org.
And I'll share, because I'm in the class, I'll share my email address with the class.
Last but not least, can you just talk to folks about the necessity for education in this time outside of the traditional spaces? Because I think that we get out of school and we graduate or whatever, and we become adults, and then we forget the value of education. We forget continuing our education. And, can you just speak to why that itself has a revolutionary and a necessity and a radical purpose in this time?
Yeah, Amanda, the more I think about living in this moment in our geopolitical maturation, the more I appreciate the adage that like the most important things you learn in kindergarten. And what I struggle with is that in this moment where there is a bully, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because it'd be easier in this moment just to cuss. But there is an ignorant person who has been put in a position of authority who is demonizing data, destroying websites that encourage us to have fact-based and informed discussions, deliberations, and build development, right? Like, I was reading again, the average American reads at a 6th grade level, like this dumbing down of our country is by design. And somebody asked about like where I think education will be in 10 years. The bigger question is where will our nation be amongst global leaders, because we cannot have a strong nation if people are dumb. Period, full stop. And so my hope is that we acknowledge what Brian Stevenson says, which is that systems work as they're designed to. And I'm talking specifically about public education. And remember, again, we didn't send our babies to school and just think that that was it. We had Sunday school and Saturday academies and after school programs. I was a part of a rites of passage program that was operated by Black men in Inglewood, California. So each of us know deep in our soul how to do this work. I know that some of us get tired, but if we do two things, one is turn off the TV. Right? Kendrick Lamar, cue the track. You can keep things like this on, but turn off the TV and start a book club. Start a book club. NBJC has Empowered, EMPOWERED. And every month we find an author, mostly Black, queer, transgender, expansive folks. Tourmaline, who was in school with us, has a book about Marsha B. Johnson coming out that we're about to amplify. Read a book and talk about it with your friends. That is a form of education. Showing up in community. Spaces, whether that be a faith center or some of us are members of Black Greek letter organizations, just gather with your folks and exchange conversation. Let's get away from this stupid belief that like we should be talking about politics. Politics affects everything, often without our consent. So we should always be talking about it. So whatever ways we can do that and increase our competence and compassion will get us all closer to freedom. That's why they don't want us reading books. That's why they're burning books. That's why they're destroying knowledge. That's why they're erasing websites, because they know that when we are empowered, when we're able to identify that this is messed up by design and it doesn't have to be this way, we are dangerous and they don't want to reckon with us. They don't want to squabble up.
Callie, thank you so much, as always, for coming through, giving us a word. I know folks really appreciate that. I know so many folks that can give us a word. See, I made it about me, y'all. Your circle is representative of your values. Dr. David Johns, y'all. Thank you for leveling us up. I enjoyed laughing and learning with you. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell your friends. Also, listen to the podcast. It's available everywhere pods are casted. Listen ad-free by subscribing to Patreon Amanda Seales. Come on and join the Seales Squad. Views from Amandaland. Live 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Wednesday, with content on Thursday and Friday at YouTube Amanda Seales TV.